Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining our Supreme Court Forum for 2026. Um, my name is Julio Peña III. I'm a district leader in Sunset Park and Red Hook, um, serving since 2020. This will be our probably fourth or fifth virtual forum for Supreme Court. I'm very excited that myself and several other district leaders were the first to start organizing these, and it has continued. And now there are many, and that's what we want. We want to see more engagement from folks who are seeking to represent us on the bench, and ensuring that people know who they are when they see your name on a ballot. Um, this is the format for this evening. Oh, before I get into the format, I'll just want to recognize some of my district leader colleagues who I see on the call. Um, I'll ask my friend Felix to introduce himself.
Of course, thank you, Julio. Good evening, everyone. My name is Felix Ceballos. I'm the district leader in Assembly D353, and I'm here to hear all the judges. My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix. And I see we're also joined by Luke Olson. Luke, can you introduce yourself?
Certainly can. Apologize for fan noise. Hi, everyone. I'm Luke Olson, and I am district leader in Assembly District 50, which is Greenpoint and Williamsburg. And I echo what Felix said. I'm just really happy to be here and hear from everyone and get to know everyone that's here this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luke. Um, And so, in terms of the format this evening, we will go through a couple of about 2 minutes introductions to each candidate. They're welcome to say anything in their introduction, followed by up to 5 minutes of Q&A from those here attending. I also have some questions that folks submitted in advance. There will be a timer in the top corner, and it will go off after time has passed, and I'm actually going to share what it'll sound like so folks can won't be surprised when they hear it. It'll sound like this. Super cheesy, but that's the best I can find, thanks to Zoom. So I'll give try
Nice,
to give
that's nice.
Thank you. So I'll just ask folks to keep an eye on the timer. It'll either be in my screen or in the top right corner of the Zoom. Um, and yeah, questions from the audience plus questions that we have from folks submitted previously. Um, and I did send a list of those of the candidates in order of how we'll be speaking. I'll also put that in the chat in a few moments. Um, and a little bit about the judicial process. Judges are Supreme Court judges are elected kind of strangely in New York State. They don't run in a traditional primary like other judges, particularly the civil court. In New York State, they run in just a general election and are selected through a judicial convention that's usually held every August of every year. Um, the judicial delegates who vote for Supreme Court candidates at the judicial convention are elected at a primary election, oftentimes unopposed, sometimes not. And then those folks are the ones who actually vote on Supreme Court candidates in in the August convention. Um, their Supreme Court judges serve for a term of 14 years. Um, and the judicial delegates who are selecting who are voting on Supreme Court candidates, their term is only 1 year. So they run in the primary. If they win unopposed, they serve until the August convention, and then if they want to be a delegate again, have to run the following year. Um, and so that is Supreme Court in a nutshell. Um, I'm gonna put this copied a little bit weird, so apologies, but this is the order for this evening. Um, And without further ado, I'm going to ask our first judge, um, Judge Servil Mims. I believe there she is. Hello, Judge. Thank you for joining us. I will give you 2 minutes and it'll start whenever you start speaking.
Thank you. Well, good evening, district leaders, county committee members, and all stakeholders in attendance this evening. And I also want to acknowledge my colleagues who are present with us as well. Again, my name is Chevelle Mims, and I am pleased to present to you this evening as a candidate for Justice of the Supreme Court. I've served on this side of the bench, first as a principal court attorney and now as a judge for nearly 20 years. And throughout my tenure, I have worked diligently and I have worked in earnest in nearly every court, the civil court, the family court, the criminal court, and in Supreme Court as well. And so I submit to you that I have honed a broad knowledge of the law, which I believe will serve me well as a Supreme Court justice. And that is complemented by strong interpersonal skills as well, working with court staff and also having a working knowledge of the complexities and the flow of work in the Supreme Court. So now my experience aside, I believe that justice must not only be done, but it should also be seen. It should also be felt. And so despite the pomp and circumstance and the black robe that accompanies this title, I do identify most concretely with the fact that I am a public servant, nothing more, nothing less. And with that comes responsibilities and obligations, all of which I fully embrace. And so individuals who appear in my courtroom can expect that they will be treated fairly. They will encounter a judge without ego. They will be treated with dignity and respect. And they will also encounter a judge who will be thoughtful and decisive. And further, who will not delay making a decision or acting, even in situations where the facts of a case and the law dictates an unpopular result, or where it is personally difficult for me. What I can say, and I know that my time is drawing, there it is. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. I welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you. And I just realized I had muted myself. Thank you. And we'll turn to some Q&A. If folks have any questions, they'll feel free to come off mute or raise your hand. And I see a hand up from Felix. Go ahead, Felix.
Thank you, Julio. Hello. My question is, if you think the Supreme Court had to make some change, what can the change you can tell us how to do the Supreme Court? Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question. The Supreme Court is voluminous in terms of the amount of work. One of the changes that I think would be incredibly helpful is really, and quite frankly, if we had more judges. The work is voluminous, it's complex, and judges generally have a very heavy inventory. And to the extent that the legislature may ever decide to adjust the Constitution, I certainly think that more judges in the Supreme Court would help us to address the cases in a more timely and efficient manner. So that's one of the things, sir. Thank you for the question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions from folks? Okay, I have some. Can you describe a difficult case that you presided over? What made it difficult and how has it changed your decision-making process moving forward?
Certainly. One of the more difficult cases that I ever had, I actually encountered within a couple of weeks of being on the bench in the criminal court. And I was working in the felony arraignment parts that particular day. And whenever that happens, you really don't know what kind of case you will encounter. I encountered a media case that day. It involved a decedent on one side of the case, a person who was unalived by virtue of this incident, and a young man of 18, 19 years of age who had only recently graduated high school. It was difficult because there was a lot of media there. It was difficult because this is a young man who was facing some pretty substantial murder charges. I needed to and did read the complaint. I felt that there was some overcharging there based on the ADA's narrative. I also understood, based on the type of bail that was being requested, that there was little interest really in this person actually going to Rikers Island. And so what made it difficult for me is that I would encounter such a serious case just a couple of weeks on the bench. There was heavy media coverage there. And so I also understood that I had no control over how the media might paint the picture for what occurred that day. But I was courageous in the moment. I did what I felt was the correct thing to do, and it fared well. And so what I learned in that moment is that you never know what to expect, but this job does require a level of courage, and you have to be able to act decisively when faced with very difficult situations such as that. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. And with 90 seconds left, I'll turn to Matthew for a final question.
Very quickly, as you're aware, judges have a lot of discretionary power. There's a lot more a judge may than a judge shall laws. Can you tell me about a time prior to your practice where you had to explain, prior to being on the bench, where you deal with a discretionary decision, the fact of the case, and how you have you taken that experience, how you deal with discretionary power on the bench?
Mr. Fairley, I'm struggling to hear you. I don't know but it was garbled. Could you
Let
repeat
me.
that,
I can
please?
ask very quickly. If you
Thank
can you
you.
hear me now?
I can.
Judges have a lot of discretionary power. Can you tell me
Yes.
about a time prior to when you were on the bench, how you dealt with that discretionary power in an adverse way before you were a judge, and what you have taken to the discretionary power?
I think your question concerns the discretionary powers that rest with a judge. You asked about a case that I dealt with before I was on the bench and after I've been on the bench, where I've exercised my discretion and it had an adverse effect. Is that what you asked, sir? I'm sorry. Is that okay? Um, you know, I think that I, oh,
That's fine. I'll give you 30 seconds to finish to respond.
thank you so much. I think that I've utilized my discretion in a matter that has an adverse effect many times. It's just you don't want to abuse your discretion. You should know where your discretion lies, and it's sometimes appropriate that you utilize it to affect a positive result. Sometimes it's proper to utilize it to level the playing field. Sometimes it will have an adverse effect, but it comports with the law and the spirit of the law. So I hope that answers your question, and thank you for the additional time, sir.
Thank you, Judge Mims, for joining us. Moving on to our next candidate, Judge Ellen Edwards. I believe she was able to log on. Yes, Judge Edwards, can you hear us okay?
Yes, just give me 1 second because I'm walking.
No problem. If you like,
Let's see if
we can come back.
okay.
No problem.
Trying to get it confused.
No problem at all. Let's go to Judge Betsy Jean Jacques. Are you here? Yes.
Yes, I am here.
Thank you. And your time starts when you speak.
Okay. And good evening, everyone. Good evening to the district leaders and good evening to the constituents. I am Betsy Jean-Jacques and I am running for Justice of the Supreme Court. I was born and raised in Brooklyn to Haitian immigrants, and I obtained my legal degree, joint degree in social work and in the law. I chose those two fields because I understood that I needed to understand the law and also the human condition. I have been a public servant my entire career. I started out as an advocate for persons with mental illness, adults and children. I advocated for the elderly in guardianships when they were the victims of elder abuse. And I was a principal court attorney in Supreme Court, where I worked for justice and honed my research and writing skills. I was elected a New York City Civil Court judge, and I was immediately appointed to work as in family court in Manhattan, of all places, even though I was elected in Brooklyn. And during that time, I worked on juvenile delinquency matters. I worked on cases involving children and families. I am currently now sitting as an acting Supreme Court justice, and I do divorces and matrimonial matters. My entire career has been about helping people. I've had the ability to use both my degrees in order to make sure that people are respected and heard in my courtroom. I'm asking you to make my act a reality because every day the importance for me is that anybody who comes before me is heard and doesn't feel like they're disregarded. That happened too many times when I was an advocate for people. So I thank you very much, and I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. 10 seconds left to spare. I appreciate that. Any questions for Judge Jean-Jacques? Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
Thank you. Felix, go ahead.
Thank you, Julio. Hello.
Hello.
I hear you mention your experience about children, about abuse. My question is, I want to know your opinion about domestic violence. Thank you.
Well, I don't know that there is an opinion other than that it is a difficult situation. It's a difficult situation because the victims are not only the spouse or the person being abused, it's the children who experience it, even if they're not the ones being physically beaten. They're listening to that. They're growing up in that environment. And I've tried to make sure that people who come before me have a space because some people are not always ready, but to open the space, to listen, to try to read between the lines and ask questions that sometimes you don't get the answers to. No one comes out and says, I'm a DV victim. So it's important to me to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I have one. Can you describe an area of justice where you believe judges should get more training in?
I don't think that there is one area. I think that, when you become a judge, you may have experience in civil court and end up in criminal court. So you definitely work hard at that. And I think that one of the things that we all need to work on is implicit bias. It's one of the things I do training for lawyers and judges constantly, because I think it's important for judges to remember that we are human, and that sometimes when we're not paying attention, when we're asleep, we let bias creep up. And you need to make sure that when you're making decisions, that you're making a decision on the case, not on the way a person looks, where they come from, who they love, so on and so forth. So that's one of the things I always advocate for training for. It's training I continue to give because I want people to learn that we all have biases. Doesn't matter who you are, we have biases. We experience them, they're real. But if judges learn to slow down, even listen, you have a heavy caseload. I've had heavy caseloads. I have to make decisions right on the bench. But I want to make sure that when I'm making that decision, when I'm thinking about this person, am I thinking about their situation and the law and not about some misconception? So that's one of the areas I think is important.
Thank you. Any other questions from folks? So if not, I have another one.
Okay, I'm ready.
A similar question to Judge Mims. Can you describe a difficult case that you presided over? What made it difficult, and how has it changed your decision-making process moving forward?
So as I said before, did juvenile delinquency. And I don't know that it was a change, but I had a young girl who I had placed in a program. She was young, she was 13 when she came to me. I placed her in a program in an effort not to remand her. And during the time that she was in the community, she didn't show up to court. She didn't go home. She came back, and I had to issue a warrant. Again, I explained to her that I wanted better for her, and that she really needed to follow the order. And I asked her, but I looked at her and I saw that there was something else going on. So I looked at her and I asked her, I said, do you think you're able to follow the order I'm giving you? And she told me no. And it was honest, and not in a disrespectful way, but it made me do something that maybe not every judge does. I asked the lawyers to come back. I said to the lawyers that despite what they think, it's important for us to help this child. Something is going on with her, and maybe we need to look at this in a different way. And we were able to do so. We found her a place to stay with a family member. She started going to school. She was able to, I saw a different person in front of me. And it's important to me sometimes to kind of look at the situation to see what sometimes you don't really get to know.
Thank you so much. And that puts us at time. I'm trying to avoid the music.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much, Judge Jack, for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
And now, going back to Judge Ellen Edwards, are you able to hear us? There you
Yes,
go.
I am situated
Thank you
firmly.
so much. Your introduction starts when you start speaking.
Good evening, all. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Ellen E. Edwards. I have been admitted to practice since 1989. I worked with 32 BJ Legal Services Fund in their Criminal Defense Division, and after that, I was in private practice where I was the managing attorney of Edwards and Associates. I had a general practice firm. I did criminal defense, appeals, a few matrimonial cases. I was a guardian ad litem, court evaluator in guardianship cases. I represented people in landlord-tenant court. I did closings. I was on the foreclosure defense bar for a little while. So I've had a general practice. I also worked, which was my favorite place to work, at the Red Hook Community Justice Center, where they take a holistic approach to solving problems where people have been arrested, people are in threat of being evicted from their homes, where young people are getting into trouble. They have a restorative justice bent in that particular courthouse, and I really enjoyed working there. My philosophy is I want everyone who comes into my courtroom to be seen and heard. In order to do that, I have to make sure that they have language access, that the person can hear what's occurring. I make sure that we have the sound enhancement and devices. And I patiently listen to the people. I don't rush them. I give them time to explain themselves. We have at the People's Court, I'm at 141 Livingston Street. We have a high number of people who are self-represented. And some of them are very, believe that they have a very strong case, and they might, but they may not be able to present it in a way that they will be successful. So I encourage people to make use of the free legal services that are available. And I encourage attorneys to be responsive to the litigants and not try to take advantage.
Thank you. And now we'll turn to 5 minutes of questions. And if folks have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or chime directly in. I will start us off with a question. What type of cases within the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court are of most interest to you?
I like guardianships. It's really, you get to combine skills that I have mediation and negotiation. There's a lot of social work involved in those types of cases, and you're able to protect someone who is in need of protection. So I like guardianships. I also love litigation. I'm a litigator. I've tried many cases, and I've resolved many cases also. So I feel like I'm a jack of all trades, master of some.
Thank you. And we have a question in the chat. What factors do you take into account when considering sentencing?
Well, when I was in criminal court, I didn't do much in the way of sentencing because I didn't do many trials, but I did work in the drug treatment parts. There, I took into consideration the person's family background, and if we release them, what environment are we going to release them to? When I was in criminal court, we had programs where after arraignments, the person, if they were flagged to have a substance abuse problem, they went to the treatment court the very next day. And there they met with social workers and caseworkers for them to make an evaluation as to what would be the best treatment plan for them. Some people, a good treatment plan, they could be released. Some people, the best treatment plan is for them to go directly to the treatment center. I've seen many people's lives changed. I believe that substance abuse is a combination of a health crisis and also a mental illness, has a mental illness element to it. And dealing with the person holistically was the best way to help resolve their criminal entanglement or criminal involvement.
Thank you. We have a question from Felix Ceballos.
Thank you, Julio. Hello, Judge.
Hello, how are you?
Great. I hear you mention tenants, and I want to know if you have some hard experience when we're talking about a tenant situation, because right now it's very hard when we're talking about a tenant deal. Thank you.
You mean landlord and tenants in terms of housing court?
Yes.
Well, in civil court, we don't, the housing court is a separate division. So we really do not have much experience in the way of that. When I was representing landlords and tenants, it's a very difficult situation. A lot of times people are well-meaning and they want to pay their rent. Sometimes there are landlords that are not well-meaning and they don't want to provide you with a habitable place to live. So those are competing interests. And then there are some people, they lose their job and they just can no longer maintain their situation where they in before. So the problem that I have seen is that people lack representation and they don't understand what their rights are. And so having great people in the help center is a way in which to level the playing field. Sometimes a person just doesn't have the money and they're not going to have the money. And the landlord can no longer sustain having the person in that apartment because they can't afford to pay their mortgage or they can't afford to pay their insurance, or they can't afford to pay their water bill if they don't have that income from that apartment. So there's a lot that the courts can do, but so much. We have to work in partnership with the government in terms of them finding affordable housing for people, and with community groups that they can, assist people to supplement their income. So the court is not cannot resolve that whole problem. There are a lot of things that factor into the housing crisis. And that's education, employment, and also people knowing their rights. So we can do the making sure that people's rights are protected, but the education and the employment, those are things that are outside that the court financially at this time is not able to supply. I think the model at the Red Hook Community Justice Center, where they do address all of those things, is a better model in terms of resolving parts of the housing crisis because they have counselors there, they have housing assistants. When you combine all of those together, that can help deal with the housing crisis, not just in a legalistic sort of way, but in a
you.
way that gives people a different starting point for their level of understanding and their ability to participate in the process in a way that you're not hurting the landlord, you're not hurting the tenant, everyone's working together toward a solution.
Thank
So,
you.
Thank
yes,
you.
Thank you. Unfortunately, we're at time. Thank you so much for joining us, Judge Edwards.
thank you for having me. I'm a latecomer, but I do come through.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Moving on now to Judge Mark Kagan. Judge Kagan, are you here?
Yes, I am.
There you go. Thank you. Well, thank you for joining us, and your time starts when you begin.
Okay. Thank you so much for having this forum. I want to thank you to all the district leaders and all my colleagues that are here and all the participants, and a special shout out to my neighbors of the 6th floor of 141 Livingston. And my name is Mark Hagan, and I have been in the court system for 30 years. I started in 1996, and I worked, we did criminal law for 5 years. I worked for a judge, and we did criminal law for 5 years. And after that, we did regular litigation, and which consisted of most of it's a lot of accidents and a lot of foreclosures on homes. And then after that, we did guardianships for 9 years, dealing with people that are incapacitated. We had the privilege to see Lola many times there in that courthouse, in that courtroom. And then after that, we did commercial litigation, which is like more sophisticated the disputes. And throughout all that time, I've written thousands of decisions, conferenced thousands of cases, met with thousands of attorneys and litigants and participants. And then I finally was merited to become a judge. And my overriding goal in being a judge is to make sure that everyone is treated fairly. Of course, that's like a platitude, but what does that mean? So we all have people in our lives that we like, and we cut them slack. We look the other way. We're kinder. And then we have people in our lives who we don't like, and we look at them under a microscope. We don't cut them any slack, and we treat them a little harshly. As a judge, you cannot do that, and I never do that. Even if you realize, oh, this is a difficult person, they're entitled to the same fairness and the same opportunity as everybody else. They're entitled to the same justice as everybody else, and they're entitled to the same equality as everybody else. And that, I think, is my benchmark sitting on the bench. Thank you.
Of course, I was muted again. Thank you so much. With the 2 seconds to spare, we'll turn to 5 minutes of questions. And I see a hand up from Hal Friedman.
Go ahead.
Okay, my question.
This is Ira Weinstock.
Ira, my question is that besides a direct conflict of interest, is there any situation in which you would refuse a case?
No. No, unless there's a conflict of interest, no. There'd be no reason to, and there'd be no authority to. So, being a judge, that means you have to have big shoulders. And if it's uncomfortable and if it's sensitive, it's not an excuse.
Thank you. Other questions from folks joining? I have plenty of questions then. I haven't asked this one yet. What qualities and experience would you look for in a law clerk? And what would you do to increase diversity in court staff, especially law clerks?
So the qualities I look for in a law clerk are basically to be a person that you can trust, that will have your back, and that will make sure that you want someone who's qualified and has good writing skills and good research skills, but those all can come along with the job. The most important thing is that they're honest, they're decent, you can trust them, and they're going to care about the cases. To increase diversity, so the way court attorneys are hired, they're a personal hire of the judge. So if that's the case, there's really no way to enforce diversity. You can encourage it perhaps, but there's no way to enforce it. The only way to enforce it would be to what they do is in the courthouse is a pool, and that pool is hired. They're a pool of attorneys, and they're hired by a committee. That way you can increase diversity. But if it's a personal hire from the judge, I just don't see how.
Thank you. We have a question from Felix Ceballos.
Thank you, Julio. Hello, Judge.
Hello.
I want to make the same question what I did before. Uh, if if you think the Supreme Court had to do some change, if we can telling us what kind of change they had to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so a lot, the Supreme Court is overworked and they need more judges. It's the same thing that the others had said. It's true. I've been there a long time. There are days where you literally walk in at 9:30, and you don't walk out of there till 1 o'clock. And it's just nonstop. We need more judges. I can quibble about how the parts are set up, whether or not that would lead to more smoother justice, but that's all, details, which I don't want to bore anybody with that. But in a nutshell, they just need more judges. If you have more judges, then everyone can handle the cases better. There'll be more time. That's what it is. We need time to deal with some of these complicated cases, and we just don't have it.
Thank you.
Thank you. 90 seconds remaining. Do we have another question from folks joining us? I have another question I can ask. A similar one I've asked many times this evening. Can you describe a difficult case you presided over, what made it difficult, and how has it changed your decision-making process moving forward?
So the hardest case that I dealt with was when I worked in the guardianship part. It's a very emotional part. And one day a woman walked in with her daughter. Her daughter was incapacitated and she had a grandson. And unfortunately, the grandson was a baby, 1 year old, and the grandson had been harmed by his mother, who was incapacitated and didn't know what she was doing. And the grandmother came in literally crying in tears. The daughter was there, the grandson was there, and she has nowhere to turn. She has nowhere to turn, the grandmother. So we set up a guardian ad litem for the baby, and we had a guardian. The mother was the grandmother was the guardian for the mother, but it wasn't enough. You can't watch somebody 24 hours a day. It was just very emotional, very hard. My kids talk about it all the time. It was baby Vincent one morning. And what I learned from that was that, if possible, a judge has to put himself into their shoes. Pretend you're them. Pretend you're going through what they're going through, the struggles, the hardship. And if you do that, maybe you can have a little more sympathy and compassion, and you can actually understand what they're going through, and you can reach a better decision for them.
Thank you so much for that answer. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Moving on to Judge Rina Malik.
Hello.
There you go. Hi. Thanks for joining us. Your time starts when you begin.
Thank you. Hello, good evening. My name is Judge Rina Malik. Growing up in a first-generation family, I was expected to become a doctor, but I defied my parents' expectations and my own by pursuing my passions. And I graduated at the top of my class from New York Law. I served as an editor on the school's law review. I worked for a federal judge in the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals at DC 37 and in private practice. I joined the state court system in 2013, and I had found my home. I was a law clerk and court attorney for over 10 years in the Supreme Court in both Manhattan and Brooklyn, as well as the Second Department Appellate Division, which was an honor in of itself because it's a very competitive process. And during that time, I gained a tremendous amount of experience in resolving disputes on a wide range of matters in various parts, conducting conferences, drafting numerous decisions on procedural issues, and practically every type of substantive area law that's heard in the Supreme Court civil term. Many of my decisions were selected for official publication by the state reporter, inferring their legal significance. And now, as a judge, I do all of that plus more, having had the experience presiding over numerous bench trials and jury trials. And I try to fulfill all of these duties with efficiency and accuracy because every case means something to someone. I work honestly and with integrity in all that I say and do because that's what people deserve, and it's what it means to be faithful to the law. Litigants also deserve respect and human dignity in our courts. And in that vein, I firmly believe that diversity inclusion on the bench is important. When you have a judiciary that reflects the people it serves, it promotes confidence and trust in the system. And I'm really proud to be the first Asian American ever elected to the civil court in Brooklyn's history. My nomination this year would be a historic step to addressing Asian American underrepresentation in the courts and enriching Brooklyn's celebrated diversity. And I think it's more than just being a person of color. We all have to personally put the work in to achieve equal access and inclusion collectively. And I spend a lot of time paying it forward to do just that. In many bar associations, also within the courts, having interns, being a mentor to so many. And I will refer to my resume for all of more details on that and awards and honors reflecting my commitment to diversity in our communities. And I thank you so much. Being a judge is not just a job, it's my calling as a public servant.
Thank you.
And I thank you, and I would be humbled by the support of everyone. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And we'll turn to Q&A. If there are any questions from those joining us this evening, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. Hal Friedman, go for it.
Go ahead, Ira. Go ahead.
Okay, here's my question. Have you ever made a decision which you knew in your heart was right, but yet the decision created a negative effect which you weren't expecting?
Negative. I can't think of a specific example, but I do think that we have this situation I encounter this a lot, only because you do your best to try to resolve a dispute with everyone. Try to settle the case, and that's only for giving people certainty so they can walk out of here today knowing what's going to happen. We always tell people that settlement is a compromise and not everyone walks away happy. But if it has to come down to it, a ruling under the law, there may be a clear answer that doesn't, and no clear winner or loser, but it's just what it means to be faithful to the law. And that's what I just try to do every day.
Thank you. And we do have a hand up from Assemblymember Davila. Is that a question you have?
Well, not really. I just wanted to say hello to everyone and apologize for being so tardy. I was at another event, another meeting, and I'm not sure how many judges have gone up already, Julio. That's my question.
No problem. We've heard from 4, and I will share the recording with everyone here after the meeting.
Thank you.
No problem.
Good evening.
Any other questions from folks? If not, I did have additional questions that I can ask. No, I'm not going to ask that question. What do you perceive as the greatest obstacle to justice?
Access to affordable representation is one. And again, I guess the concept of diversity and inclusion in our courts is important for more, I guess. And Judge Edwina Mendelson, we've been doing a ton of work to ensure, we have adequate bias training. And it's really, though, people opening up their hearts to it and also their minds to recognize that we all have implicit bias. And so that it does affect how litigants are perceived, and just to be constantly reminded of that is helpful for everyone, even if you don't think that you are biased. It's there, but representation too it's very hard because we're not allowed to give legal advice from the courts, and sometimes you really wish maybe that if they had someone who could really adequately explain we can do, but adequately represent them. And make it affordable too.
Yeah. So we have another question. Seeing as we would need to amend the Constitution to get more judges, how else would you address the issue with the overwhelming volume of cases that judges carry?
Yes. I definitely agree with Judge Mims on that as well. And the court staffing, so the clerks shortages are kind of an issue, court officer shortages are an issue, but I do see our leadership kind of proactively trying to recruit more and really engaging with the public. I love, the whole idea of really us putting ourselves out there as like a part of the community is important, so it's not such a foreign place. But yeah, and also a welcoming place to work. That's the volume. Yeah, clerks and other kind of it's a shortage everywhere. It looks like judges and clerks, and to have adequate staffing at all times.
Yeah. Felix, if you can ask your question in under 10 seconds, go for it.
Thank you, Julio. Just I want to ask if you have some experience about some case you had to make a hard decision, but you had to do it, but it's hard for you to make that decision. Thank you.
I think a lot of decisions, I weigh it over and over and over again. Sometimes nothing is really clear cut when you look at everything. So a lot of decisions can give me that kind of gravity that I always try to put into every case, because like I said, it always means something to someone. But one hard matter I had was trying to settle a case which involved, the city of New York, a Medicare lien, a litigation funding lien, paying the person was incapacitated with brain trauma, so paying the guardian ad litem, and just trying to piece together how everyone could walk away satisfied. It was incredibly difficult undertaking, but that was one of my most proudest settlements, I would say, because it was very complicated and hardening.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Malik, for joining us this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time. Great to see everyone.
Have a good night. Moving on to Judge Carmen Pacheco, who is here. Yes. Hi, Judge. You're muted. There you go.
Good evening, everyone. I am the supervising judge of the Civil Court of the County of Kings, and I'm also an acting Supreme Court justice. It's truly an honor to be here before you, and it would be a tremendous honor to earn your support. I am a proud, long-living, lifelong person who's been in Brooklyn for, I'm not going to tell you my age, but I'm up there. And I was raised in the Gowanus houses and moved to Marine Park, and then ultimately landed in Carroll Gardens. My mother is a retired public school teacher, and my father was a proud union worker who taught me, both of them taught me the values that have guided me throughout my life, which is hard work, trust and treat everyone with respect, and always be connected and give back to the community, because I've been given certain things and other people may not have. I have practiced law prior to entering the court system for over 35 years. As a practicing lawyer, I dedicated my life to service in the community, because you have to give back, and you have to give back with respect, and you have to give back the things that have been given to you and pay it forward. I established the first Hispanic woman-owned law firm in New York in 1992, wherein we represented business, not-for-profit organizations, financial institutions, and the priority was really to stand beside the people in the communities that we came from and service them. Peter, the large clients would have to pay for the pro bono work that we did. We represented people who were subjects of deed theft, predatory lending, employment discrimination, housing-related disputes. And we did that. Majority of that work was done on a pro bono basis, myself, my law firm. And once again, I look forward to having you and your support.
Thank you so much, Judge Pacheco. Now we'll go to 5 minutes of questions, and I see a hand up from Assemblymember Lavila.
Hello, everyone. Once again, I'm so happy I didn't miss this. Thank you, Julio, for putting this together. And this question is not only going to be for Carmen, but anyone that is after Carmen. We've been seeing a lot of things that are playing out in the paper in terms of judges getting themselves caught up in issues, only because they, do not recuse themselves out of fear, right? And so I want to know how committed as Supreme Court judges you all are going to be to recuse yourself when you obviously know that there are issues with certain individuals in the courtroom. Listen, I've been a district leader for many years, so I've seen it all play out. But, we're living in a different time, and, we want to see that things are changing. And the only way we're going to do that is collaboratively. We help make judges. That's our job. But we also demand that our judges also act accordingly and not out of fear. And so that it's more of a question. How committed are you to doing the right thing? Period.
I've always done the right thing, whether it was in high school, whether it was in college, whether it was in elementary school. I mean, I can give you moments, maybe not here, but in other times, of the times that I've always stood up. I am a woman of courage. I will never, never be pushed around by any political process whatsoever. And I can tell you that because I practiced law in that way for over 35 years. And even confronted here in the court system, I've done the same. There is nothing that's going to make me bend. I am a strong tree. And I believe in the justice system. And if I fail the justice system, then the justice system is going to.
Thank you for that answer. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I'd like to chime in there. I'd like to respond as well. Thank you for that question. You really should recuse yourself anytime your impartiality can be questioned. If you think that you can handle a case and remain impartial and you move forward, just the appearance of impropriety is what we protect against, right? Just the appearance of it. And that's that could be just about anything, right? So you have to be really careful. And so even if you think that you can be impartial, you can be fair, and you will not be swayed because of whatever the dynamics are with a particular case. If your impartiality could even be questioned, you should recuse yourself. So, and
thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Judge Pacheco, as well for your response.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Judge Pacheco, another question for you. What types of cases within the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court are of most interest to you serving on the bench?
Since I've practiced in just about every area of the law, and I've written SCOTUS briefs, I've done opinions, I've been in criminal court for 2 years. Whatever the administration sends me, I will be willing to serve. There's no real priority. I mean, I am currently in the TAP part, which is the trial part. I am a trial lawyer. Also on the faculty for the New York State Bar. If you're going to pass the property, once you pass the New York State Bar, you have to take a course with me, a videotape on property. So I'm very well versed. I'm published in the Federal Rules of Decision. So wherever the courts send me, I'm willing to serve as long as I'm serving the public wholeheartedly, in which I will do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from folks? Not had one final question, if you can respond in under a minute. Can you describe an area of justice where you believe judges need more training?
I think judges need more training in the area of evidence and jury trials. And overall, they should be taking courses, not just with the Judicial Institute, but I believe that they should be taking, which I do. I've taken over 100 hours or more, whatever it is, of outside training with the different bar associations where they've given classes. So I think that a judge really should be up to date with the law because that's what you need to do. You need to preside over cases and be up to date with the law. Can't rely on other people. You have to rely on yourself first.
Thank you. And with that is at time. Thank you so much, Judge Pacheco, for joining us this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much for all of your time, and I'm looking forward to your support.
Thank you. Moving on to Judge Hamali Patel. Are you here this evening?
I'm here.
Yes, there you go. Hi,
Yes.
Judge Patel.
Hi, how
Your
are
time-
you?
Good. Your time begins when you start.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for your time today. My name is Hamali Patel. I am elected to civil court and sitting in criminal court at 120 Skirmerhorn. I am a attorney for a long time. I started my career after law school in private practice, but I quickly realized that my calling was to work in the court system. I am now in my 26th year of public service. I was 12 years a court attorney referee, 12 years as a court attorney, 8 years as a court attorney referee before I left the court system to go to the Board of Elections. And now I'm back. I was elected in 2024. Like my colleagues, I've always believed that doing this work is an act of public service. We are, in fact, government employees. We serve the people. And to my mind, I do my best every day to serve the people and convey the intention to be a public servant by at all times being fair and honest and courteous, like my colleagues have said. I believe it's really important, especially in the criminal court where I am now, that people believe that they have had their day in court. You can't always, I hate the word win, but you can't always win your case, but you can certainly feel like you've been heard. And I do that every day. Additionally, for 8 years, I was a court attorney referee in Richmond County Supreme Court, where the court system has designated me as a Supreme Court trial part. I conducted trials and hearings on civil matters, including financial issues and matrimonial matters, which are incredibly complicated. It's equitable distribution, child support, maintenance, insurance, selling homes. And I did all of my own work. I didn't have staff. I didn't have a clerk. I didn't have a court attorney. I did all my own research, my own writing. I did all my clerk work. I did all my intake of my calendar management. I did all of that, and I managed all my trial cases on my own. And so I have that experience, 8 years in the Supreme Court. My work in the court system has always been in the Supreme Court, so I have that background. And in my personal life, I have 2 kids. I've always wanted to be a positive influence in my community. I have always volunteered, participated. I'm a lifelong Girl Scout and a former troop leader. One more thing, I believe the Girl Scout motto is make the world a better place, and I live my life that way every day.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Judge
you.
Patel. Moving on to 5 minutes of questions. If anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. If not, I have some questions to ask. Felix, go for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Julio. Hello, Judge.
Hello.
Hello. I hear you mention matrimonial, child support. And my
Yes.
question is, I want to hear from you about domestic violence. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So actually, I am now in my second year of criminal court. I am one of the 2 domestic violence judges in the courthouse, in the 2 DV parts. Domestic violence, and I know one of my colleagues touched on this, it is more than just a perpetrator and a victim. These are families. These are people that are going through, not only as the person who comes to court, as potentially the person who has done wrong, for lack of a better word, but these are families. And the goal in my goal has always been, when I have worked with people in the matrimonial part and now in the domestic violence part, we're a problem solving court. We do our best to make sure that protecting the victims, we also give and until they're found guilty, the alleged perpetrator of violence, the ability to understand the reason that their behavior is harmful. We give a lot of training. There are a lot of support systems. There's monitoring for alcohol and drug abuse. There's lots of programming that people have access to where they can understand the effects of their behavior, not just on their partner or on their spouse, but their children, which is the next generation of people who are impacted by domestic violence. So we work very hard not to send people, and I'm speaking only in obviously in criminal court right now. We work very hard not to incarcerate people in domestic violence cases, because the ultimate goal at the end of the day, even if you incarcerate someone, what does it do? They're going to get out and they're still going to have a family that needs them, that loves them despite everything that's happened. They need their support emotionally, financially, and sending one person in a family who's the adult to Rikers or whatever can really cripple a family in so many ways. So the goal is to make sure that people who have not before, and I realize this in the matrimonial part, we grow up, we learn math and science and how to tell different rocks apart, but we never learn conflict resolution. We have never been taught it as children, as adults, and we only learn how to resolve conflicts by watching sometimes not great role models. So the fact that we can find somebody as an adult and say to them, hey, this is how you can have an argument peacefully. This is how you can listen to someone. This is how you can learn from things when things go wrong. And that, if you can teach that person that skill, no matter how old they are, you can change the course of that family's life. You can change the course of those children's lives. And, the family is the most basic unit, the first unit of society, and you are making societal impact not only by helping that one person and that one relationship, but the kids to go on and say, hey, this could get better. I'm sorry, that was a very long answer.
No worries.
Thank you.
And we have a question, hand up from Maritza Davila, if you can answer with 90 seconds left.
Well, thank you so much for that answer. But my question, I guess, is going to be because, I've seen this. I've helped bury a lot of the young ladies in my district.
Yes.
Not everybody is fit to go and do, training, and these are generational curses that have followed these young men or young women or anybody, because domestic violence could be anybody, right? Could be a grandmother or whatever.
Absolutely.
So when do you say enough is enough? For example, I know a young man beat his first girlfriend up, right? Ended up guilty. Then he ended up fighting the case, and they sent him to do a couple of trainings. Now he's on his second girlfriend, and he's doing it worse to her, and she has a baby. And so when do we say enough is enough when it comes to domestic violence? What are the real repercussions or consequences that they're going to be facing if we don't really do anything about it?
I think I'm out of time. But
I'll give you 30 seconds to respond. Thank you.
For some people, incarceration is the only answer to keep them away from the people that are hurting. That's the only answer. I have seen myself, when it is absolutely necessary, sending someone, remanding someone. I once had to make sure that defendants' phone privileges from Rikers were stopped because he kept calling via third parties the woman that he had been harassing for years and years, his former fiance. So I know that I've done enough of this work in 26 years that I know that some people can't be helped. And I know that the goal in those situations is always to protect the victims.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That is time. Thank you for joining us, Judge Patel. Appreciate it.
Thank
you. Moving on to Judge Lola Waterman. Judge Waterman, are you here? Yes, there you are.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yep. Thank you. Your time begins when you start.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lola Waterman, and I'm really glad to be here with you all tonight. So currently I serve as a family court judge where I handle custody, visitation, and family offense cases. Before going to family court, I served in the civil court with many of my colleagues where I handled a wide variety of civil matters. Before taking the bench, I spent nearly 15 years practicing and serving in Supreme Court. First, as a solo practitioner, where I represented clients in real estate matters and guardianship matters and in matrimonial matters. I was then a principal law clerk to a Supreme Court justice. I volunteered in the pro se office, and I also served as a special referee for uncontested matrimonial matters. Outside of the courtroom, I've spent years bringing legal information directly into the community. I have organized Know Your Rights workshops on tenant protections, on immigration, on deed theft, on consumer debt, and a lot of other topics. I've run free legal clinics with dozens of volunteer attorneys. I've organized judicial forums where I bring judges into the community to help demystify the court system. And my goal throughout my career has always been to make the law feel less intimidating and more accessible. I bring to the bench every single day my lived experience, first as a first-generation American, as a mother, as the spouse of a pastor, as someone who's helped family members navigate the immigration system, experiencing housing insecurity while I was in law school, and losing my dad to gun violence. I believe that all those experiences not only inform the decisions that I make from the bench, but it also helps to shape my understanding of how deeply systems fail people. And I believe it's the reason why I care so much about transparency, about why I care so much about accessibility to justice, and to make sure that people are not swallowed by the processes they don't understand. So if given the chance to serve the people of Brooklyn, I want to continue to build and to contribute to the court system that reflects those values. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Judge Waterman. And now we'll move to 5 minutes of questions. If folks joining us have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or unmute yourself. If not, I have a bunch of questions. Going back to one of my original ones, can you describe a difficult case you presided over? What made it difficult, and how has it changed your decision-making process moving forward, if any?
So am I allowed to say all my cases are difficult in family court? Because they all are. So I'm in custody, visitation, and family offenses. Oftentimes, those cases involve domestic violence. And so in New York law, the presumption in family court is that both parents have equal rights to custody. So having parties appear before me where there are allegations, whether of DV or safety concerns for the children, and people coming into court with raw emotions. It's a very high conflict, place in family court. So I find that it's oftentimes difficult to get the parties to settle their cases. I usually go about by explaining to them when they first get to my courtroom that I don't have any preconceived notions as to who's going to have custody of the child, that I'm encouraging them to settle their case, because if they go to trial, they would be leaving the decision up to a third party, me, who is not, a family member, who does not know the values of the family. And so trying to get them to see reason, trying to get them to understand that it's in their best interest to figure out a resolution that works for their family, figure out a resolution that is in the best interest of the child without throwing dirt at each other, I think has been the most complicated part of my work. But I find that when you give it enough time, when you continue to explain to the people what the law is, when you continue to facilitate that conversation, more often than not, the parties are able to come to a resolution.
Thank you. Unless there's another question, I have another one. Can you describe an area of justice where you believe judges should get more training?
Well, I think I echo what all my colleagues have said. Implicit bias is one of them. Mental health and trauma is what I see regularly in family court. But as a big access to justice person, available resources is one that is very prominent in my mind. So I know that in family court, we have the 18B panel where we can assign counsel to litigants that are interested. I know criminal court has the same thing, but we don't have that in civil court. whether on the civil court level or the Supreme Civil level. So I believe that, having attorneys available in civil court and Supreme Court would be very helpful to the litigants that appear there. When I was a practicing lawyer, I volunteered in the pro se office, and part of what I had to do was to help pro se litigants navigate the court system. And a lot of people don't even know, what kind of case it is they have to file. They just know someone has done something wrong to them and they're going to court to get justice. So, making sure that, people really understand how the process works is very important.
Thank you. And hand up from Felix, if you can ask your question in 75 seconds.
Thank you, Julio. Hello, Judge.
Hi.
Hi. My question is, if you can tell us any experience about some case for you was a challenge to make the decision. Thank you.
So that's what I had with the prior response that I gave about a lot of the cases that come before me in family court. So one that I can readily think of, maybe two, was where, I started off my speech that I normally give at the beginning of the cases, that, I don't come here with any predetermined decisions, that I want to open up my courtroom to allow people to be frank with me and let me know what's going on so I can make the best decision. And as the case went on, an instance of domestic violence by the father against the mother came up, and the allegations were so jarring that my first instinct was to immediately say that the father could not have any parenting time with the child. But I had to take a step back and really think it through and parse through all the facts that were before me. And knowing what I know from what data and science shows, that children benefit from the influence and the affection of both of their parents, I don't take that lightly. And so what I was able to come up with in resolving that issue was to give an order of protection, a temporary order of protection for the mother, and have a third party facilitate visitation hours with the dad. That way, the child gets to have both parents in their lives while also protecting the mother from the domestic violence by the father. Yes. I hope that answers your question, Felix.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And that's time. So thank you so much, Judge Waterman, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And last but certainly not least, Judge Linda Wilson. Judge Wilson, are you here? Yeah, there you go. I see you.
She's
There
on
you go. You
mute.
should be unmuted.
I believe I did it. All
There you
right.
go.
Thank you. I'm dialing in using my cell phone tonight, so it's very difficult to manipulate all the functions here. So thank you for your patience. Good evening, everyone. It's good to see my colleagues, some friends, and also members from the community who I've missed since sitting on the bench, because we've been hard at work here in criminal court. So by way of introduction, I am Linda Wilson. I was elected to civil court in 2024. Well, I began serving in 2024. I was assigned immediately to criminal court, where I've been presiding since that time. So I am in my third year in criminal court, presiding predominantly in the emerging adult part, which services defendants who are between the ages of 18 and 24 years old. I also spend additional time sitting in the treatment court, both the misdemeanor and felony treatment court, as well as I provide coverage in the Red Hook Community Justice Court. On a personal note, I am a lifelong Brooklynite, a third generation Brooklynite. In fact, I am a mother of 6 children who were also raised in Brooklyn, and now my family encompasses 5 generations of Brooklynites. I have been running around the court system literally since I was 16 years old as a high school intern in Brooklyn Supreme Court for a renowned woman criminal court judge. Upon my graduation from law school, I entered the court system as a court attorney, and I served in that role for 30 plus years. I worked in every area and every level of court in the New York State court system over the course of that time, both as an appellate law clerk, an appellate court attorney, a referee, and much more.
Thank you. And moving on to 5 minutes of questions. If folks have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or come off mute. And I will start us off with a question. What are factors do you consider when deciding on a sentence for a person who has previously been convicted of a felony?
You know, what's interesting about my role here in lower criminal court is that what I've come to learn is that most of the sentences that are given here after trial happen in only about 1% of the cases. It's a fact that only about 1% of any litigation ends up in a trial. So to the extent that I have had to impose sentence, it's been as a result of a negotiated plea agreement and an offer by the district attorney, followed by an acceptance by the defendant, and that sentence is imposed. Many times in lower criminal court, because we are now focused on problem solving in large part under the leadership of Chief Judge Rowan Wilson. In criminal court, that means finding speedy resolutions for conflict resolution, anger management, programs that are geared toward theft avoidance, and a variety of other issues are addressed when arriving at a sentence. So sentences don't always include time in jail. They often include programming under my auspices. And so, Julio, I've never sentenced anyone to jail or prison as a result of the conclusion of a trial here.
Thank you.
And I will say that the law does provide a sentencing structure. So upon a jury conviction, upon a jury trial, there is a lot of guidance for judges to do so. I just have not yet been put in that position.
Thank you. I'll ask you another question, similar from before. What qualities and experience would you look for in a law clerk, and what will you do to increase diversity in court staff, especially law clerks?
Well, what I value most in a law clerk is someone who is intellectually curious and who thinks out of the box in order to get to complete justice, right? And what that entails depends on the nature of the case. But I like a court attorney who sees nuance and who is outspoken and who doesn't mind disagreeing with me so that we can get to a full, complete resolution on determining any issues that are presented to me in a motion. Someone has to be an excellent writer as well as having keen intellectual skills. And I also require someone who has integrity and who puts the work before anything else. I am accustomed to being at work late at night. In criminal court, we work during the weekends, and although our court attorneys aren't required to be with us 7 days a week in criminal court, I do value someone who will go the extra mile to extend themselves to ensure that we are public servants in every way, and that means giving of ourselves.
Thank you. And one final question. Can you describe an area of justice where you believe judges need more training?
I have been thinking about this for quite some time. I have been a litigant, even while as a judge, and I have faced disrespect and rudeness, and I have been ignored by presiding judges what I do think, as I try to distill what's happening there when judges do that to litigants, and they didn't know I was a judge. P.S. I was victorious in those litigations because I was the one who was wronged. That aside, I believe that hurt people, and judges are people. Hurt judges probably hurt people just like anyone else. We experience secondary trauma in family court and criminal court, certainly in Supreme Court, where thousands of people are losing homes in New York City. I think we probably have a docket in Brooklyn where the numbers of foreclosure cases are between 5,000 and 10,000 cases. That has been a constant. So when people are experiencing trauma and they're not processing that, I think that they need time for wellness. Perhaps judges should be mandated to engage in therapy and wellness training so that they can help to cure and heal what's hurting them, so that they don't impose that on the litigants, the attorneys, and the staffers.
Thank you, Judge Wilson. That is time. Thank you for closing us on self-care, which is something I very much value in everyone's work.
I will be an advocate for that. I do think that judges should be mandated to take a sabbatical so that they can decompress and get themselves together so that they can be their best. Maritza had a question that I thought was very compelling, and I wanted to contribute to that, to answering that question if she's still on the line.
She's not on the line, but I will give you, if you can answer in 15 seconds or less.
I'll do my best. So Maritza talked about, she alluded to judicial courage, whether someone would have the courage to step away from a case that could cause problems for someone. I previously had the experience of having to step down from an arraignment where a district leader was before me. I had someone who doesn't live in the county come in and sit in that case. And I have also had the occasion where a district leader has stepped into the well beside an attorney and a defendant, and I've had to have that person escorted out of the well and into the audience. So at all times, I do have my antennas up to make sure there's no appearance of impropriety, and certainly no impropriety happening on my watch. And that's so important, so that we can instill public trust and confidence, but also let people know that we are at all times doing the right thing. And there was a situation here in criminal court where the assistant district attorneys were seated in the well with the judge in one of the arraignments part. And I put on the brakes and said, I cannot arraign these cases any longer after another judge had determined that that was an obvious appearance of impropriety. And so what I did was I halted proceedings, and there was a big drama over this, but ultimately the reconfiguration of the courtroom happened. So now the district attorneys are sitting out of the well, and the appearance of impropriety that had existed probably for decades before I came along is no longer in place. So judicial courage is really important in ensuring that justice is achieved.
Thank you so much, Judge Wilson. We are at time. I do want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, especially our judicial candidates. This evening's forum is being recorded and will be shared with judicial delegates and folks who are interested in sharing. I want to thank you all again for joining us this evening, and have a wonderful evening.
Julio, wonderful job, Julio.
Adios.
Thank you.
Good night,
Thank you,
everyone.
Julio.